Hey everyone, real quick before we get into the video, I just wanted to let you know that I stream occasionally over on Twitch at twitch.tv/broidsu. If you're interested in watching me play Duel Links, the TCG, or other Yu-Gi-Oh related fun, be sure to follow the link in the description below, follow me over there, and get notified when I go live. What's going on, guys? It's Broidsu, and if there's anything that can get me out of a content drought, it's the announcement of new Gusto support. Last summer, I put out a video in the midst of the OCG structure deck pull talking about these guys, their main weaknesses, and threw out some ideas as to what can be done to fix them. In this video, I'm going to be taking a look at the new Gusto cards revealed for Dawn of Majesty and share my thoughts as to how well these cards addressed the problems the archetype had before. The first card I want to touch on is Gusto Tailwind. This is an equip spell card that reads, equip only to a Gusto monster. You can only use this card name's 2 and 3 effects once per turn each. 1. The equipped monster cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. 2. During your main phase, you can activate one of these effects based on the equipped monster's level/rank. 4 or lower. Special summon one Gusto monster with a different type from your deck. 5 or higher. Special summon one level 1 tuner from your deck. 3. You can banish this card from your graveyard, then discard one wind monster, add one Gusto spell or trap from your deck to your hand. This one is a lot to unpack, so let me break this down effect by effect. The protection effect, as alluded to by the card's artwork, is meant for Gusto Sfreeze, and it's no mystery why. For those of you unfamiliar, Sfreeze is a level 6 wind psychic-type synchro monster with 2000 attack and 1300 defense. It takes one tuner and one or more non-tuner Gusto monsters, and when this card is synchro summoned, you can target one Gusto card in your graveyard, add that target to your hand. Your opponent takes any battle damage you would have taken from battles involving a face-up Gusto monster you control, and it can't be destroyed by battle. This is the cornerstone of just about every Gusto deck, and giving it protection from destruction by card effects is a great plus when it already can't be destroyed by battle. In addition, Sfreeze's effect returns a Gusto card, not just a monster, meaning that you can use this card's next effect to help you synchro summon Sfreeze, and then immediately add it back to your hand. Another less obvious use for this effect in a pinch is to equip it to something like Eagle. One problem I mentioned with the low-level Gusto floaters in my past video is that it's really easy to play around the conditions that would allow each individual monster to trigger. To bypass a card like Window or Eagle, all you would have to do is destroy it with a card effect, but while equipped with Tailwind, that's not an option anymore. Your opponent has to either get more creative with their removal with non-destruction effects, use additional resources to out the Tailwind first, or bite the bullet and attack over the equipped monster, triggering its effect. This is most likely not going to be the preferred use for this effect, but in more complicated game states when your options are more limited, the flexibility this card offers is always welcome. The second effect is the best one that this card offers, and I don't think it's a big mystery as to why. Since Gusto is so reliant on your normal summon and lacks in archetype special summoning, having a card that can let you handpick the monster you need to complete your synchro or link plays is so vital to the speed of the deck. This effect, I may add, doesn't restrict the monsters you can summon for the rest of the turn, so the possibilities for this card are endless. For example, this card turns any Gusto into a 1-card Helki Fibrax. Summoning Reese from your deck going second would grant you a searchable creature swap and give you potential to break boards. A level 3 tuner equipped with this card can summon Windar from the deck and immediately synchro into Wolf Ryette, the new level 9 synchro also revealed for Dawn of Majesty that I'm sure you've already heard about. Or you could elect to make the new level 6 synchro that I'm going to mention next. I haven't even touched on what can happen if you equip this card to a level 5 or higher monster, because level 1 tuners are historically some of the best monsters the game has ever seen, and the possibilities really are endless. But before we get to that next synchro monster, we have one more effect on this card to cover, and that's the Spell or Trap searching effect. Note that this effect to search doesn't say that you can't add another copy of itself, meaning if you use the second effect to start a synchro combo that ends on Sfreeze, you can search for another copy and give Sfreeze the protection I mentioned from the first effect. Going second, you also have the option to search for Contact with Gusto, which can destroy any card on the field. There are a few more Gusto spells and traps which might warrant some experimentation, but in my mind, Contact and another copy of Tailwind are going to be your two main targets. The next card I wanted to touch on is Gusto Raprampilica. This card is a level 6 psychic synchro monster with currently unknown attack and defense. It takes 1 tuner and 1+ non-tuner Gusto monsters, and it says, you can only special summon Gusto Raprampilica once per turn. If this card is synchro summoned, you can activate this effect. You cannot special summon monsters for the rest of the turn, except wind monsters. Also special summon 2 Gusto monsters, one each from your hand and deck, but their effects are negated, and if you do, immediately after this effect resolves, synchro summon 1 Gusto synchro monster using only those 2 monsters. Your opponent cannot target other Gusto synchro monsters you control with card effects. This card is clearly another monster made to support Sfreeze, as you can make this card instead of Sfreeze, and then essentially get a Sfreeze for free. In addition to that, this effect makes it so that you can choose a monster from your deck to use for that synchro summon, and then immediately add it to your hand with Sfreeze's effect. One such target is the last monster I'm going to talk about, but you can also search for things like Pilica or Musto for extension or negation. This is a bit clunky though, since if you synchro summoned Wrappering Pilica, chances are that you've already used your normal summon. I'm not sure if any were revealed for this set or others in the OCG, but there are currently no wind rank 6s in the game that you can make by overlaying this card with the Sfreeze that you would make. But why would you want to when this card's second effect in tandem with Sfreeze's effect and Tailwind's first effect makes your Sfreeze that much harder to deal with? I mentioned in my previous video that a Gusto Towers-esque card would be nice to make your synchro plays worth the slow setup, and this combination of effects is right in line with that idea, but instead of printing a new Towers, you're turning an existing monster into one piece by piece. While this sadly doesn't protect from common metagame threats like Zeus, in the event your opponent doesn't have the easy out, it's going to require a lot of resources to deconstruct this combo. The third and final card revealed is Gusto Vether. This card is a level 3 Wind Winged Beast Tuner monster with 600 attack and 1000 defense. It reads, you can only use this card name's 1 and 2 effects once per turn each. 1. If a face-up Gusto monster is destroyed by battle or sent to your graveyard and this card is in your hand, you can special summon this card. 2. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can send 1 Gusto monster from your deck to the graveyard, then you can special summon 1 Gusto monster from your hand. This card really is the perfect card to close out the new trio and ties everything together. Note that this card's first effect triggers when a Gusto is destroyed by battle or sent to your graveyard, meaning that this card can be summoned from your hand right after a Synchro or Link summon, which is a much needed extender and boasts the possibility of some even crazier combos. Then, in addition to that, you can put another body on the board to extend even more, while also being able to set up your graveyard. Another thing to note is that this card can also be used defensively to keep monsters on your field throughout your opponent's attempts to break your board. Sending a card like Guldo to the graveyard and summoning Pilica off of this card's effect will allow you to immediately summon back the Guldo. Off of that one Vether activation, you've now put 3 monsters on your board for your opponent to deal with, and one of them can float when sent from the field to the graveyard. I am really optimistic about this new support, and I'm excited to see what people will do to optimize the new combos that these cards enable. However, I would be remiss to not mention the problems that the deck may still have. First of all, like I mentioned before, even with all of the protection offered by the new cards, there are some really popular cards out there that can totally dismantle your Sfreeze without much thought. Ice Dragon's Prison and AA Zeus are both really common threats that the Gusto cards don't really have a nice answer to. In addition to that, you're extremely reliant on opening your equip spell to get your plays off the ground. Even if you play 3 copies of Gusto Tailwind and 3 copies of Foolish Burial Goods to set up Banishing Tailwind for another copy, you're still going to spend about 3 out of every 7 games without a path to it in your opening hand. Even then, remember that Wrappering Pilica requires a Gusto in your hand to activate its effect, so you'll not only need the Tailwind and a target for it, but you'll also need another Gusto to summon off the Wrappering Pilica to continue your combo. Using Vether as a starter has some promise, but that still requires having another Gusto in your hand. Without any great hand fixer cards, I'm worried about the consistency of the deck compared to the current metagame. Either way, I'm still extremely excited for Dawn of Majesty, and I can't wait to give Gusto a try for myself. While there still may be a handful of issues, the flexibility in these cards makes it really hard to predict just how far they can be taken. In any case, let me know down in the comments below if you like this style of video, and tell me what archetypes you want me to take a look at in the future to open more discussions. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time.